Remember me, I'm the one who had you, baby.
So it was interesting to see the composition of the South African team playing Zimbabwe in the warm-up game ahead of the World Test Championship final. Kind of gave us a lot of insight into Coach Shukri Conrad's thinking. I think broadly speaking, my view is that Conrad should be allowed to succeed and fail on his own terms. And that means that some of the selections that he's made that have given us insight into his thinking, potentially, should be allowed to play out without too hectic a criticism. That doesn't mean we can't discuss it like we're about to do here. But I think broadly speaking, the principle should be that Conrad should be allowed to succeed and fail on his terms and should be held accountable if they do fail and should be celebrated if they do win the World Test Championship final. I think one of the big talking points coming out of this warm-up game is the selection of Wiaan Mulder at number 3. Now, Mulder is an interesting case for me because I followed his career since he was a teenager, backed early at the Lions, widely considered to be a prodigious schoolboy talent, and then had always been back to translate that talent into performance at the first-class level, which I think is done in bits, and similarly at international level has been given quite a few opportunities, which I think, if he were honest with himself, that his talent really hasn't translated into delivery at the highest level. A lot of that is irrelevant because Conrad continues to pick him and he's been a mainstay in Conrad's sides throughout his tenure, Conrad's tenure, that is. And it speaks to a belief in the player who's now 27. I think we often see him as this kid that is just broken onto the scene. He's actually 27 years old. And I think that comes with a level of expectation that he now delivers as he is in his prime, or is coming into his prime as an international cricketer. And batting at 3 in an international final of this caliber against a team of this caliber, Australia that is, who I think are widely acknowledged to have the world's best bowling attack, is going to be a big test for him. Based on the reports from that came out of the Zimbabwe warm-up game yesterday, he looked good for much of his spell at the wicket. Got a roughie, LBW, and but for the most part, looked really good. Now we can argue that the caliber of the team that they're playing against is not exceptional, all of these things, but you can only play what's in front of you, right? And it looks like Conrad is going to go with Mulder at 3. And this is an interesting experiment because I actually don't think that any team in world cricket, barring perhaps Australia with Cameron Green, have actually solved this challenge of an all-rounder that is equally adept with a ball as a second or third change bowler and a top order batter. Of course, the ghost of Jacques Kallis will always haunt South Africa in this context. And to compare Mulder and Kallis is just nonsensical. One is one of the greatest cricketers in history, arguably the greatest cricketer in history, while the other is kind of still finding his way. Mulder averages 22. I think that betrays his talent. And he's probably a 35 average player if he realizes the fullness of his potential. But I think there's a legitimate comparison with Cam Green. Green, who's been prolific on the county scene recently, fills so many gaps for Australia. He gives them such a tactical adaptability because of his competency with the bat and ball. And South Africa are looking for Mulder to be that type of player. I think Green is further on in his development, but certainly South Africa are looking for Mulder to be that type of player. And I think the World Test Championship final is probably going to be a defining moment for Mulder in his career. If he succeeds there, the opportunity for him to cement that place goes without saying that it's there. But if he fails, I think there's a hard look at what value he brings to the Proteas team. Like I say, he's been given countless opportunities, both at white ball and red ball cricket. He's played 18 tests. And I think we're getting to the point now where Conrad is going to have to make a decision about Mulder either way. And he, I'd imagine, would be hoping that the decision is then to retain him based on exceptional performance if he does bat that number 3 position in the final. But again, Conrad must be allowed to succeed and fail on his own terms. And in practice, that means that if he backs Mulder and Mulder comes off, he needs to be praised for a move that I think most of us see as bold. Maybe most of us have some reservations about based on Mulder's technique. And if it succeeds, it's a masterstroke from Conrad. If it fails, he needs to take accountability for that. But that's the nature of international cricket. And I certainly hope he succeeds because it sets South Africa up in ways that I think are significant and gives them a tactical flexibility that would match Australia's. And that would certainly put us in a good position. Elsewhere, there are questions around the composition of the rest of the team then. I think Tembo Bavuma, in fact, I know Tembo Bavuma has solidified his spot at number 4. He's been excellent in Test cricket. But after that, there's some question marks. So I think David Bellingham will be given an opportunity to continue at 5. I don't think Tony De Zorzi, who played in the warm-up matches, I don't think Tony De Zorzi makes it. I think Bellingham bats at 5. I think Tristan Stubbs bats at 6, which feels right. He was styled high up the order, it didn't quite work. I think his technique lends itself to him coming in lower down the order. So Stubbs at 6 feels right for me. And then Vrede at 7, equally. Vrede there've been a couple of pros who've criticized his technique, Herschel Gibbs among them. Particularly around his lack of foot movement, tends to throw his hands when the ball is wide, and has been caught in the slips a couple of times. But I feel like 6 is a good position for him. Then I'd go Marco Jansen at 7, gives us good depth there. Marco Jansen at 7, Keshav Maharaj at 8, no-brainer selection for me. Kagiso Rabada at 9. No, I'm getting this mixed up. Apologies. Let me reset. Vrede at 7, Jansen at 8, Maharaj at 9, Rabada at 10. And then there's a key position that I think will be fought out between 3 different players, like I said in the previous video. So we've got Dane Patterson, who's excelling in the county tests, in the county championship right now. We've got Lungi Ngidi, who's playing in the warm-up game. And then we've got Corbin Bosch, who's also playing in the warm-up game. So Bosch gives you batting depth. He batted excellently on debut. But Patterson would bring a knowledge of the conditions. He's in red hot form at the moment. And so for me, that would be a smart selection. But again, like I said earlier, Conrad will live and die by his selection for the World Test Championship final, which is not that far away now. And the key talking point in all of this is Mulder. I hope he succeeds. I like him as a player. And tactically, he gives us so much if he does succeed. But let me know in the comments below what you think, where you think Mulder should be accommodated, how you think he should be accommodated, what his role should be, or whether you don't think there's a place for him in this team. In the comments below. Thanks so much for joining. We'll chat again.